How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? VuduVince here, and we're going to do a walkthrough on the video I just uploaded, the A6M2 versus a pair of 109 G14s. I'm doing it because I was asked, and it was something that I kind of wanted to do, but it's very difficult for me to say what I'm doing, and it's something that I've kind of enjoyed. I've done it a couple times, is to try to talk through a fight as I'm doing it, and I think that there is definitely a lot to be learned, because I don't know if anyone else does the kind of stuff that I do. This defensive fighting style that I've picked up and enjoyed has made me a much better offensive fighter pilot. But it's difficult because you're going to die a lot. You can die a lot. But that's not what I care about. I care about the engagement itself and learning from the actual engagement. And that's what we're going to do here. Is I'm going to try and tell you exactly what was going through my mind. And all this stuff happens really quickly. I size up an opponent very quickly, and sometimes I'm wrong. At the end of the engagement, I make a mistake and I stall the aircraft, and I'm stuck in one spot, falling tail down. And that's where I end up getting killed. But I do take out one of the opponents. I think he crashes. I think I get an assist on him, which is ridiculous. But long story short is, due to the engagement of me and them, one of them dies and I get shot down. So it wasn't a complete wash. That I just got killed with no kills. But anyway, we're gonna start the engagement. So when I go ahead and begin here, we've already identified a 109. That's what I'm already looking at. And so I'd flown over to this base. I'm at 16,000 feet, about 208 indicated. So I'm probably doing about 245, 250-ish. We'll see what the gauges say if I look down. So we have a target that's below us. And one of the very first things that you'll notice is I'm looking at him a little nose down, but he has a negative. He's coming up to us from 2K. Now the 109 G14, all of the 109s in general, except for maybe the E, should have an A6M at a distinct disadvantage. The A6M, I think, has a top speed of like 302 miles an hour or something like that, just over 300 miles an hour. It can't dive very fast. Its weapons are not super powerful. It's got a pair of 20s that are okay. They do good work while you have ammunition. They're 120 rounds. They are slower rate of fire, slower velocity. They're not as bad as the Emil, the 109E, but they're still pretty slow. You got two 7.7s for your nose guns. You got 1,300 rounds for those, but you've got to do wingtips, wing roots, or pilot kills. They are not just going to, eventually they will bring an aircraft down from body shots, but really you have to work wingtips and wing roots. And that takes an inordinate amount of skill to just hit those items. And I do lay quite a few rounds later on in this engagement into those areas, and it doesn't come apart. So there are times where you just don't put enough rounds into them to kill them. But they do have a high percentage of wounding, especially if you get rake rounds to the cockpit and stuff like that. So against a 109 G14, which is what we're playing against, after the G6 series of aircraft, they're going to have two nose-mounted machine guns and one hub gun through the actual hub of the propeller. The G14 actually gets an option on its hub gun of running either a 20mm with 200 rounds or a 30mm Mark 108 with 64 rounds or something like that. And that's a bunch of 30mm. And they only got to hit you once with it to kill you, in a zero. There are two nose-mounted machine guns up on the top are 13mm, so they're 50 caliber equivalents. And they will rip you too, because you have no armor, very little, no self-sealing tanks, and you can't take very much from them, which makes this even more of a disadvantage to you as you're engaged in this fight. Then there's two of them. When you have two opponents that are fighting you at the same time, it's fairly easy to see if they're working together or not because of their timing. They could be working together, but not very good. One of them may not be a very good pilot. One of them may be a decent pilot. And so it kind of depends on which one and how quickly they're attacking you. If two pilots are in time and are doing their stuff right, you're going to have a hard time staying alive. These two guys are decent, but they weren't working together as well as I think they could have in order to kill me. It was a little bit of a lazy engagement. I had a couple times I broke away from them, a couple times they broke away from me. So they weren't just real hard set on pressing me and really killing me. which is good and bad. Because what you look for as a defensive fighter are mistakes. You're looking for the mistake. Somebody wants to get that kill. They're like, I got to get this guy. I got to kill this dude. We've got him at a disadvantage. We're going to kill him. And that's when they overshoot, or they make a turn too tight, or they stall, or something happens and they put themselves in front of my guns. So we can tell if this aircraft's coming up. He's 2,000 yards away, 2K, coming up towards me. And we're only about 16,000 feet. And so I think the power band on the 109, and this is, more stuff that's important. He's going to come up there to me. He can make it up there. He was kind of in a slight dive on the way to here. And I know he's going to make it up there to me. So what we do is we watch him, and we see, I go ahead and roll a little bit, and there's the other one. And I think they dropped down here and they'd killed somebody or something happened. Anyway, they were both in the same area. And this guy's now at 1.5, and he's coming up here to me. So I identify the other target, and I decide I don't want him to come all the way up here and try to shoot at me. Or, well, that's more or less what's going to happen. But the deal is that I know he's been climbing this entire time, and my options are limited on what I can do. I don't want to go nose to nose with him because his guns will kill the hell out of me. So if I pulled down into him, I'd be in a nose to nose situation. So what I've done, and what I'm going to do, is pitch up and actually get him to stall. So I go back, I identify him again, and now he's at 600, and he's just about got guns on. Now when you pull up and you're going to try and avoid somebody in this manner, don't just pull straight up in the air unless you absolutely positively have to. If you have to, it's because you're almost at E yourself and you can't perform any maneuver, but it's still not smart to do it. Even if you stall, it's not smart to try to pull straight up because you're giving them a perfect shot. All they got to do is just hang onto the prop long enough to get some rounds at you. And if one of those spuds hits you, you're dead duck. So what we do is a spiral climb with a little bit of rudder tossed in, and you can see that he's still getting rounds up here to us. So you maintain this spiral, and as you do, he has to follow you. You're bleeding E, he's bleeding E. You're both bleeding it faster because of the spiral. You're changing directions with rudder and elevators, and you want to kind of skid left and right, really one direction, and keep him hanging out there. And so you can see as his rounds start to scatter all over the place, he can't keep the nose up. He's fighting to keep it, and the aircraft doesn't want to do it anymore. And the nose drops. So as the nose drops, I come in, I pop a couple notches of flaps, and I roll back into him. Now, at this point, typically you'll see, it depends on what the aircraft is, they may try to make a flat turn here, or they'll do what he did, and they're going to dive away. They're going, no, they don't want me on top of them. So he begins to dive away. Now, the A6M series, after about 300 miles an hour, 350-ish, the controls get very stiff. It doesn't respond well, and most other aircraft can outturn you at above, 325, 350, because they have a higher turn rate, high-speed turn rate than you do. Because the aircraft is so light, and it doesn't have hydraulically actuated controls and things like that. So you don't want to chase people down to the deck unless you can get away with that kind of stuff. It's just not a good idea, especially with another aircraft. You have altitude. We're still at, 16,200 feet, and still doing about 200 miles an hour. So there's no reason for us to chase him down. He's below us. He has to come up to fight us. That's where we want him to be. So what we do is we kick a little bit of left rudder. This kind of keeps us slow. And we pitch and we look and we watch and see what he's going to do. So he's staying down below us. Again, he's still 800 away. We could dive on him. So we kind of put the nose down towards him. And he starts to just move away from us. So the deal is that he's much faster. Once he gets some speed and he has WEP, I don't have WEP, he's going to pull away from me relatively quickly. He has to come back and want to engage me. He dictates the fight. If he wants to fight, we'll fight. If he doesn't want to fight, he'll leave. So, and that's one of the other problems with defensive fighting is that a lot of times you're flying aircraft that are inferior in a lot of different aspects. And the bad guys have to dictate the fight. So he starts to pull away. So I'm watching for the other one just to make sure that he's not going to try and do like a long run and have the other aircraft run up behind me. But I'm fighting over this island. There's a base down here in the town. And so they're fighting here in this area. So I want to just stay right here because this is where I want to fight people at. And if I need to go down to the deck or run to the town or other friendlies are going to show up, you stay right here in this area instead of getting out over open water alone. And what that does is that, yeah, nobody may come help you, but if another person shows up, they're watching this person to see if they're going to attack them. It gives them something else to concentrate on instead of just focusing on you, because it makes the fight a lot easier for them if they know no one else is out there fighting with them. So the other aircraft's still 4.5. He's still farting around way away. So I go ahead and pitch up, and I figure that this guy is climbing. And as I roll back, he's actually pitching back into me pretty quickly, because I was going to go for some altitude. So he bounced up and went for some altitude. So roll back into him. Again, I could have turned into him to try to get guns on, but I could tell that he was going to get his nose around in front of me, and I don't want to be shooting at him in front. So what I did is I pitched the nose up, and what I'm going to do is spiral. And what I want to do is just stay outside his cone to where he could get the nose pointed at to make a shot. And as you can see, we just kind of, almost like a yo-yo kind of, not really a yo-yo, kind of like a defensive spiral, but horizontal instead of vertical. So essentially, if an aircraft's flying along, it's almost like you're following a half pipe. You're skateboarding along the outside edge, and someone's going right down the middle of the pipe. Well, they can't get up to get to you because you're still using your momentum to work around the half pipe up and above them. You're working the edges, and they're working the center of it, the trough. And I mean, they just can't, he can't get the guns on me. I can't get guns on him, but he can't get guns on me. So again, we're still fighting defensively. So he pulls on by. We pull a little bit here. He gets the nose back down again. And so he's going to get some speed back up. So what I'm going to do is maintain my altitude. I'm going to pitch up and get some more altitude myself. But this time I'm going to watch him. And as I watch him, here he comes back again. So I pitch back and turn back over where I think he's going to be flying, to where I could probably try to get back in behind him. You never know if a guy's going to suddenly lose you or not. Usually from the front quarter, from the front 180 degrees, a person's not going to lose sight of you. But they can, and if they fly along straight, you should set up for that to see what they're going to do. So he's making a kind of a winding turn here. I don't know why I got some lag right there, but that's probably from the footage. Anyway, so he started to move away, so I moved away from him. Well, at his speed, we get pretty well separated. My ulterior motive here was to shoot at bombers. There was bombers coming in here at a pretty regular pace, so I ended up noticing a set of bombers. So I come over here to harass them a little bit, and that'll we'll see if we can get him to come over and come after me again. Because right now we're just kind of dancing around. Nobody's really trying to shoot the other one down. I mean, I'd like to shoot him down, but he's staying away from me. So we have a set of bombers, B-24s that come over here. So what I want him to do is I want him to come after me. I'm tired of farting around right in that area, and I want him to come shoot at me. So here he comes at 2K. I'm going to have plenty of time to make this run on these B-24s. And on the B-24s, no matter what you're shooting at, you want to shoot for the wing roots, between the body, the fuselage, and the first set of engines. And as you can see here, it's a pretty good line. I end up missing by a little bit and hitting just this number 1 engine here. Well, really, it'd be number 3. So I was just a little bit off. If I'd been right in here, I'd have been good, but that just comes down to practice. So, but that's right here is where you want to shoot at on B-24s. They'll catch fire and burn down. It doesn't matter what you're shooting, 7.7s, rocks. You throw whatever you want at these, and as long as you hit them a good deal, they will catch fire and that rascal will go down. So a little bit off on it. Then 300 miles an hour. Anyway, so he zooms on past. Now the 109 is after me. He's actively engaged me, and the other 109 is actually coming to mess with me too. So we turn in real quickly. We see he's starting to try to cut the angle. So instead of continuing to pull, you actually want to change directions as you're doing stuff. He's actually right here behind this panel. But what you want to do is as you're making your hard turns, just before the bad guy's going to start shooting, change directions. You know that he's about 600, 400. He's probably going to shoot. So what you do is instead, he's going to pull through your turn and probably lose you under the nose. So instead of him making a blind shot on you, you go level. And you'll see that here in just a second. As I stop my turn quite sharply, he goes up above me. I pitch up into him and roll. And I have a shot, but I pull too much and I miss. So now I stall the aircraft. and I pitch back down, and this guy's here at 200. So now what we want to do is we want to make ourselves as small a target as possible. So I'm going to point my wing at him and try to get away from him, which fortunately we stay outside. He does have shots on us, but he misses. And I dive away, and now I'm trying to look for the other target, the other 109. So I'm looking, there he is. So there's one, so I'm going to pitch up into him. I know where that one's at, but I was looking for the other one too. So now we're in a pretty bad situation. I have to keep this turn for the most part against the other 109, but this 109, if I continue upward, he's going to kill me because he's got a good shot. So I actually should have rolled down, but I maintained, probably kicked a lot of hard right rudder and pitched up and just stayed outside of his area. So we're going to go ahead and turn all the way around. And the biggest deal is you want to keep at least one of the two in sight. You need to keep both of them in sight, but you need to know where they're at. So one's here going away, one's above me trying to pitch back in. So we're watching for him. Here he comes. We're going to pitch up into him hard, and we're going to point the wing at him again. We don't want to go nose to nose with him. You could try, but the odds are that you're going to get killed, and then you've done nothing. So he's coming down. He's going to try and pull through my climb. One of the other things that we're doing here is our closure rate. Our closure rate is pretty darn quick right now. I'm doing probably 150, 200 miles an hour. He's diving at probably 350, 400 miles an hour coming back down. So this little snippet right here is happening fairly quickly. He's going to try and make a shot. He doesn't have the angle. He moves on by. The other 109 is coming this way. We're going to avoid him now, so we're going to point our wing at him and pitch up, staying outside of his guns. Now he's in here close, and this is what we want. We want him to where he's not just making a boom and zoom. We want him to make a maneuver, a turn, where if we can keep our speed down, we can turn inside of him. And so I actually do get a chance to shoot here, but he notices this, and he maneuvers and gets out of the way, which is good for him, not for me, but it's good for him. So he gets out of the way, and the other aircraft's up here at 2K. And so this is where I was talking about that these two guys are decent, but they don't work well together. They're not working well together. They're not working well enough to actually kill me outright as easily as they could. He's at 2K. He needs to be on me right now. That's where he needs to be. In order to cover this other guy and in order to keep me turning, he needs to be on top of me right now. I need to be avoiding him. Instead, he's at 2K farting around, and I'm not concerned with him. So I'm going to keep this guy in front of me. So what happens is if you get split, one guy's behind you and one guy's in front of you, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Keep the dude in front of you, and keep his nose away from you. Because as long as you're chasing behind him, he can't shoot you. And you only have one dude to worry about. And you know where the other guy's at. He's in front of you. So he's going to have to make a turn left or right. And you only got one dude to avoid initially. So this is okay. So I'm going to follow this other guy. He's going to pitch up. This guy's going to come in to try and shoot me. I'm going to turn into the one bad guy. I'm going to put myself at 90 degrees to him. And what I'm doing now is I have both of them at the same bill. Both of them are essentially 90 degrees left and right. One of them is going to make an attack on me. I'm going to avoid him. And then that means I can just turn right back into the next guy. Turn my nose to the next attacker. Because you do want to turn your nose to him. You just don't want to go nose to nose and head on. You don't want to shoot at them. You don't want them shooting at you. So this allows me to keep track on both of them. You pull into this guy. Avoid him relatively easily. You maintain the turn, and here comes the other guy. So you know this dude can't pull inside your turn here. There's no way that he can physically do it. So you try to find him, but you've got this other aircraft coming at you. So now we're going to avoid this guy. So we're going to pitch up, stay out of his arc of fire, and we're going to look for the other opponent. So here he comes at 1,000. So now we're going to pull and avoid him. He misses. And now our nose is pointed back at the other guy. So this guy wants to stay fighting with us, so we're going to do a yo-yo here. Try to make a shot, and we miss. We pitch up, now we're looking for the other guy. So the other guy is still, he's at 2K, but coming this way. 2K gives you 10 seconds, 15 seconds, maybe. Probably not even that long. It's probably really like 5 to 10 seconds to operate, to do whatever. But this engagement was 6 minutes long. So that's a long engagement, a sustained engagement of 6 minutes or so. That is a long fight in this game. Most engagements are over in less than a minute. But to fight two people for 6 minutes-ish is pretty serious. Of course, I started with the one guy, then I engaged the B-24, so probably the overall fight was about 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. So he's at 2K. I'm looking for the other guy. So both of them are here. One's diving, and one's pitching away, and he's got sight on me, because you can see how his aircraft is essentially, if you take your hand, point it straight at the screen, flat. Now roll it left till it's about 45 degrees, and then pitch it up, like towards the upper top left corner of your screen. And so he's got an angle right here where he's looking down and out the backside over the backside of his left wing to see me. So you know that he sees me, he knows where I'm at. This guy's diving in. Again, I'm still pointing my wing at both of them. This provides for the smallest amount of surface area for them to shoot at and to hit. And it allows me to roll one way or the other. They don't know if I'm going to roll right and pitch back around, if I'm going to pitch up into them. They don't know which way I'm going to go, but I'm providing the least amount of target just in case he's lobbing rounds at 1.5 or at 800 as he starts to close, and I'm making a straight and level run here. It's happened before. Always be defensive. So I roll back into him, locate both targets again, and essentially, and this ends up being a natural deal, is that you want them to be diving on your 6 o'clock. If you're going to have a dude attacking you, you want him to be diving at your high 6. You want him to gain a lot of speed, because when you turn with a Zero or KI or Brewster or anything that turns, it's more focused on turning ability than actual like sustained speeds and dive rate and all that kind of stuff. You want them diving on your 6 o'clock so that they're as fast as they can possibly go, because they're trying to close the distance. They're like, yeah, I gotta get the kill, gotta get the kill, gotta get the kill. And then when you turn, they can't turn because they're going too fast and they blow past you, which allows you to reset and wait for them again. And ultimately what ends up happening in that instance, if you have like a P-51 or good examples, they come at you, they're going to just come in there and just get you. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, okay, and you just whoop out of the way. And they whoop out the other side. They haul ass out the other side. And they got to turn around and come back, and they try to set up again, and they just go, and they're doing like 450 miles an hour, and they zoom through there and they don't hit anything. And they do this about 4 or 5 times. One of two things is going to happen. One, they're just going to leave. They're just, fuck this shit, and they're going to leave. Or two, they're going to get stupid, and they're going to start trying to turn with you. And when they start turning with you, that's when you're going to end up shooting them down. And so you're looking for one of them to really make a mistake. And that's what this defensive fighting turns into, is the enemy must make a mistake for you to profit. There are times where you can use your skill to outmaneuver a dude, but those engagements don't last very long, and they're not what I'm looking for. This kind of an engagement is what I'm looking for. So we have both of them inside again. We're going to put the other guy at our 6 o'clock. The other guy's looking at us. He's at 1,000. So we kind of have them in a weird spot. I think we have one at like 1 o'clock and one at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. So you want to always just get your nose into the first one and avoid him. So one's back there. At this point, it's kind of difficult because not only am I also using snap views, but then I'm also using Oculus. So it's sometimes a little bit difficult for me to come back through and ID where I was looking. So at this point I've actually lost sight, and you can see me looking and looking and looking. And Animal 14 come through here and kind of tied him up a little bit. So we're watching gauges, and I think they end up just tagging him real quick, just right out of the box. They end up killing him. And anyway, so now we're back to our engagement with the 109s again. So at this point I decide I'm going to take it to the deck. I don't know if I was low on fuel or anything. I usually aren't not worried about fuel. So now they're both together, and they kind of got some bloodlust, because they're like, yeah, we just got this guy. All right, let's get this dude. So now they're in, and I'm diving away. So now they really want to chase me. So we're going to pitch into them hard. We're watching the water. When you start to get down here towards the water, and this is why I stress flying low. A lot of times I go to the training room and I fly low a lot, in amongst trees, down along the water, all that kind of stuff, is so that when you get down there and you actually get into that fight, it's not a concern for you. You're not worried about the water. You let the bad guys worry about the water or the trees or whatever. Yeah, you'll end up clipping them eventually, but as you do it more and more, the bad guys will hit the trees a heck of a lot more than you're going to hit the trees. And it's just a guarantee because you get used to flying. So as you get down here low, there are times where you just have to say screw the bad guys and focus on your flying. And over water is definitely one of those times. So as you get in low, you're about to stall, the bad guys are behind you, and you get in there and you go, okay, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either a guaranteed crash with the water, or I might get killed by these guys. Fly the plane. Just fly the plane. If you get shot down, that's just the way it is. But don't crash if you can avoid it. So I'm pulled hard. I avoid both of them. No, it looks like Animal's still up, but they didn't want to keep farting with him. So now we start the real fight. We're down here at altitude, very low, less than probably 2,000 feet, 5,000 feet. And we got both bad guys back in front of us again. So again, this guy is not an immediate threat. He's the closer opponent, so we want to keep our nose kind of pointed at him, but this guy is the one that's going to get guns onto us first. So we roll back in. That guy is avoided. We're going to dodge this guy again. And this is where your spatial awareness and your situational awareness comes into. You know the track you saw the first 109 on. So if I'm thinking, and if he stayed on this same track, he should be coming on around to get on my 6. The other guy may pitch up, kind of do a higher yo-yo, and come back around to get where both of them are essentially on my 6 o'clock again. So we make another sharp turn here. And it actually happened a little bit differently. The higher guy dumped his speed and came around, and the slower guy actually pitched up and went for altitude. Or I may have got him confused one way or the other. Somebody's behind me and the other guy's going away. So I get down here lower. I drop down near wave top level. And this does a couple things. Number one is when people get target fixated and stuff, and you actually get down here on the deck, on the water, in the trees, when they start getting up to those speeds at 350, 400 miles an hour, they'll make mistakes and they'll auger. And that's, I think, actually what ends up happening is one of them ends up crashing. I don't actually shoot them down, but one of them crashes. And that's what I got the assist because Animal had shot him. Okay. So, because this footage is actually from February of this year, 2019. So it's pretty old stuff. I say pretty old. It's several months old. But anyway, so you drop the nose and you hope to get one of them to auger, and it just makes people more nervous. So I avoid him. The other one's above me. We're going to maintain our altitude. He pitches in. I avoid him, and you can see how quickly he made his shots and he pulled his nose up immediately because he's worried about the water. He doesn't want to crash, which is a good deal. So use that water against your opponent. So now this guy's pitching over. He's at 1K. He's fairly slow. This guy's going to make a turn right in front of us, probably go for some altitude. He actually keeps the nose down. This guy's going to pitch in. We're going to stay out of his nose, out of his way. So now we're at a point where this guy's pitching up, and this other guy is going to actually come right in underneath me. So we kind of lose some speed here. We're watching him, and the other one's coming out right in front of us. So this other guy, there's no way that he, at this range, the dude that's above me, that he can get the nose back over and actually drop in on me. And that's just come from experience. He can get the flaps. If I maintain the same like forward direction, yes, he could. But if I shoot at this guy and then pitch up, which is what I believe I end up doing, there's no way he can slow down enough, get the flaps out quick enough to actually pull with me, especially down here. I'm at 121 indicated, which probably means I'm doing about 130, 145 miles an hour, which is where you want to be at if you're turning. So this guy is in front of me. I go to watch for the other guy, and I think I end up worrying about him more than I should have. In reality, he wouldn't have been able to make the shot on me anyway. But I was still worried about him. But now, having watched a couple times, I know that he couldn't have made that maneuver. So I just pitch up a little bit, and he should come out below me, which he does. So I decided to engage him instead of trying to go up with the other guy, where this guy could possibly come up underneath me. I go after the dude that could possibly shoot at me, the guy that's lower. So I roll in. I go to make a blind shot, and he comes out over here because he notices and he maneuvers, just barely, staying out of the way. So again, that guy is not a threat at the moment. I need to find the other opponent. So here's this guy, and this is one of the points where I go, you know what, the hell with it, I'm going to try and get this guy. But I end up looking for the other dude here momentarily. So we put some rounds in him. And you usually get a sixth sense of when he goes, it ought to be about time for the other dude to show up. And here he is at 200. So what we do is instead of just making a right-hand turn right out of the gate, which is expected, we're actually going to pitch the nose down. So his initial gunfire, that's where he's probably shooting blind, is going to miss. So we pitch down, he goes to shoot, and typically I know how I shoot is if I'm shooting blind, it's like blip, 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 I shoot a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to look and see where the guy's at. And then I'm going to pull lead again where I think I need to shoot, and I'm going to shoot again. So he's pulled a little bit, we're probably under the nose, he made his shot, and then he's going to drop his nose. Well, in that time, I've actually went negative, and now I'm going to go positive, so I'm push forward on the stick, dodge his initial gunfire, and then pull back on the stick to avoid him. And so as we can see here that he's in a good position, but as we go to yank this rascal around, we should be able to stay away from him. So I end up using my little patented maneuver, which is kind of a forced stall. We're down here at low speed. It essentially just makes the aircraft stop. It's not a hammerhead or anything like that, but it's just a little maneuver, kind of like a tail slide, but not really. It's its own little funky thing that I've figured out. But essentially you just stop. So we just pitch up real hard, and now both aircraft are actually out in front of me. So now this guy is definitely not a threat, and I should be able to pull through on this guy here. And sadly, I'd run out of cannon. And this is where it's really important that you make sure you hold on to your ammunition to where it's really effective. And I do this all the time. I go, man, if I just held on my cannon a little bit longer, man, if I just done this. But you don't know how the fight's going to develop, and sometimes it's better to spend that ammo early than it is to be right down there at the end. But sometimes you get down there at the end, you got some machine guns, and you try your best, and you just can't kill the dude. So again, we're in a good spot here. That little maneuver has put us in a perfect spot. We're at 126 miles an hour. We're at 385 feet. And both targets are actually doing it. So instead of following this guy, I actually end up following this guy. And as we pull through, we start putting MG fire on him. And as you can see, we're putting it where it needs to be, but he just doesn't go down. And that happens. I think we probably expended 300 rounds of ammo or something. We probably put 50, 60 hits in him. That's just not enough weight with the 7.7s to do anything yet. So the other guy's in front of us. We got to avoid the second guy. And so one of the other deals too is as these aircraft speed up, just like I talked about before, they just can't get the nose up. They just can't get maneuvered a lot of times to make shots and get away on the other side. So you have two options when you make these engagements for the G14. He can slow way down and make a better shot and maybe kill me, or he can maintain his speed, and if he misses, which is likely, he has enough speed to get out and away from me, because he doesn't want to turn fight with me. So when guys want to start turn fighting with you, slow down to make those guaranteed shots, or what they think are guaranteed. That's where they make the mistakes, and you get a chance to shoot at him and kill him. So he's going to come in there, and as you can see, he just couldn't get the rounds on. Actually, no, that's where I made the mistake, was I pitched up and I stalled it. And the other guy actually crashed, and I didn't catch it on film. Oh, I didn't actually catch the crash. Let's see who that... So some judge went down, and then Jack Bob was probably the other deal. So what ended up happening, let's roll it back, is I went to make this maneuver, and when I did it, I was doing 138 miles an hour, and I actually stalled it in one position. So instead of actually getting pulled through and actually kind of tumbling over this way, I stalled in one position and ended up taking a 30 millimeter and got the wings knocked off, or one of them anyway. But one of them did crash, and that just come down to I was going too slow, and when I pitched up there, the aircraft stalled completely and was just hanging there in the middle of the sky and allowed a perfect target for him. Probably because I reduced throttle. If I'd had full throttle and maybe been doing 150 miles an hour, 160 indicated, I'd have been able to complete that maneuver, which would have essentially been the same thing that I always do. It's just to pitch up and around and kind of stay out of their guns. But long story short is I made a mistake. That enemy finally was in the right position at the right time and made the shot on me and killed me. But overall, you know, the entire fight was close to 7 minutes from start to finish. First one, then two. And we got one guy with an A6M2 and finally ended up getting knocked down. So it was a good fight overall. I hope this has been kind of educational for you. If you want, I'll do more of these. I'd like to do them while I'm trying to fight it, but it can be kind of difficult to walk through all that kind of stuff while it's happening. But I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions at any point. Just timestamp it and say, hey, what did you mean here? Can you elaborate more? And I can try and type it out and stuff like that. Of course, you can always hop in Discord. The Discord link is down in the bottom, and you can hop in anytime. And when you come in there, you'll pop into the general channel, and someone will probably say, hey, who are you here for? And you say, hey, I just want to talk to VuduVince. They'll say, okay, and they'll probably give you Ace's high tags. And then you can just message me on there, VuduVince, and we can bounce it in chat, and we can talk about any of my engagements. If you say, hey man, you did this one video and you did this and this and this, what happened there? And I'll go through and watch it, and we can discuss it or whatever. So, alright guys, well y'all have a good evening, and I'll see y'all next time.